Okay. Okay, I'll call to order the City of Escalon Planning Commission meeting of December 12th, 2023. Can everybody join me in a Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, how about a roll call?
Commission Chair Mark Sarkozy.
Here?
Commission Vice Chair Steve Castellanos.
Here.
Commissioner Barbara Willis.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Dunbar.
Here.
Commissioner Ronnie Van Dyke.
Here.
Okay, note all cell phones, pagers, similar devices need to be set on silent or vibrate mode or turned off unless you are an on-duty emergency responder. And we'll go to the consent calendar for approve the minutes from the meeting of November 14th. Any comments?
I didn't see anything to comment on. I make the motion that we approve the minutes of the November 14th meeting.
I'll second. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And abstained?
Abstain, I wasn't here.
Okay. So motion passes 401.
401?
Okay. All right. Let's see. Next is public hearings for the administrative matters, the 2024 goals discussion.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, no public hearing. We do just have the one item. It is a recap of our goals discussion from last month, excuse me. So you will notice that we do not have any projects related on the agenda, although we do have a series of pending, approved, and future projects, which I can go over if you are interested in that. And I guess I'll also gauge your interest in having these types of meetings, not only about goals, but where we don't have an action item for you all. And we just talk about, something sort of ancillary, right? Like goals or, something like that. So if you have any comments about meeting with no projects or anything like that, please let us know either now or in an email afterwards, and we'd be happy to accommodate the group's wishes on how often to meet, when to meet, for what topics to meet on. So we'd be happy to have that conversation. But really, this is a wrap up of the goals discussion. I thought the goals discussion at the last meeting was a very fruitful discussion. Staff wanted to put the thoughts down, the things that we heard down, put them onto paper, kind of organize them a little bit, share them with you in advance of this discussion, and just kind of round out now the conversation. Last month was a little bit throwing spaghetti on the wall, kind of seeing what sticks, seeing, just throwing out all the ideas. I wanted to kind of put it together and, kind of as a group, start determining what direction we want to march in. Knowing, of course, that we have limited staffing resources, which is no excuse, and, limited financial means. So we got to be strategic, I think, is where I'm going with this comment on, what we select. No one wants to overpromise and underdeliver, right? And we don't want to be, sort of going out there trying to do everything and not being successful at anything. So that's kind of the prelude to this discussion. Be happy to turn it over to you all to just, kind of finalize the thoughts. Did we miss anything? Do you have any comments on what we're currently working on? And then the potential ideas, of course, there should be a number 6 here. Any others that you have thought of or think about that you would like to to add to the list as potential ideas. So with that, I'll turn it over to the group for discussion.
I, for one, like this kind of meeting, especially if we can learn something. Being a new commissioner, there's a lot for me to learn. And it's always good to get the benefit of seeing what staff is thinking and how the thoughts are being organized. I did go through each of the topic areas with some thoughts. I don't think it would be appropriate to do them all at once. But I think these are the kind of things we should do. I also wonder if it might be feasible, because a lot of the thoughts I had intersect with other portions of the city, recreation, for instance, the city council and public safety. So it might be good if we could engage, it doesn't have to be a formal setting, but if we could engage with other members of the city, other departments, to find out what's feasible and why some of my ideas might be absolutely ridiculous, but why some of them might work. And so I'd like to hear that. So those are my initial thoughts.
I like the idea of getting together and discussing. I wouldn't be opposed to giving up a Saturday to, not just a meeting time, but a little workshop type thing. You mentioned limited financial means. I hesitate to commit to too many because it does cost for us to meet like this. Also, I've brought some things, having been here for 30 years, design guidelines for neighborhoods, walkable communities, creating walkable communities, designing for pedestrians. I've got these things over the years that I had thought of bringing them to Mike, but I don't want to reinvent the wheel. Over the years, I've seen many workshops on these very topics that we've talked about and that are listed here. So, yeah, I don't want to reinvent the wheel, but they do need some attention. Those are my initial thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's great to have a meeting like this. I like your point about being selective and not over-promising and under-delivering, because there's quite a few items on just this list, and this was just brainstorming. It probably could be twice as much. I think this is totally appropriate to talk about. I do like the idea of possibly meeting with other other entities, or if you have this, with like the recreation group, if you have a goals discussion with them and see where they might overlap, behind the scenes, and then we come together a little, some same ideas. So I appreciate this, bringing it up like this. I've been here 5 years, and it hasn't been like this before. So this is, I think this is a good direction to go.
I mean, I'm not opposed to meeting like this. The subjects that we brought up were very broad, and in ways of, we have a recreation commission, so I hesitate to overlap there in lieu of participating in their meetings, as I think if we encouraged participation from that group with ours and ours to them, I think that would help having everybody in the same room that way. As you mentioned, we're talking budgets, and city council's talking budgets, and it's tight. So I do believe in planning ahead as much as we can. But I think maybe if we can break these topics down a little bit into smaller, sizable bites. And I mean, Barbara brings up a great point. Some of this stuff maybe has been dug up in the past, but not acted on. And with her history, maybe she can bring some of that to light so that we don't reinvent the wheel. But we probably do need to look at it from a fresh perspective, for sure, because maybe that's why it didn't go anywhere.
I'm at a disadvantage because I missed the last meeting. But as Jalen mentioned, we have limited resources. You know, my feeling is that we are limited on so many ways because of the lack of revenue. And we've lost a really big player. And the income on the Ford dealership. And I would like to see if we could brainstorm city council, planning commission, staff on ways to try to attract businesses into this community, because without the businesses in this community, it's going to be really difficult to pay police officers more money. It's going to be difficult to do a lot of the things that all these are all important, but I think the driving force is to figure out a way that the city can generate more income and not rely on what the state is going to give us. I like the idea of the walkable, you know, Barb and I have been on I have the gray hairs on the planning commission. We've heard a lot of things. There's been a lot of great ideas in the past. You know, we had at one point in time, you know, a beauty contest that when developers wanted to come in and build, it was who was going to provide the best looking product in the community that we would be proud of. For some reason, that's disappeared. I was driving down, I don't know where it was. I was going somewhere and they had a beautiful streets. It had a brick wall. It was a small, you know, neighborhood street with a brick wall, and they had 3 feet sidewalks. Well, unless you're 2 little kids, you can't walk side by side. And this walkable thing, I would encourage, if we are looking at new developments, is to make the sidewalks wider. Encourage people to walk. And, you know, if anybody's out early in the morning in my neighborhood, everybody's out walking. Affordable housing, it's really hard to give incentives to a developer to come in if we don't have the financing system. I think also that senior housing, I think, should be top of the list of housing in this community. So the elderly people that grew up here, you know, they have an opportunity to stay in the community, maybe not in their house, but somewhere instead of moving to Modesto or Oakdale or not Rip, it's too expensive. So, I mean, that's what that's my thought. And I like the idea of having, you know, get together with, you know, let's call it the brain trust of the city. Throw out some concepts. You know, we're just an advisory to the city council, but you know, we can give them some good input and good input from staff, obviously, that's your expertise.
I think that ideas ideas don't cost anything until you try to implement them, of course, but one of the things I've noticed is that because my walking route takes me to the east end of town, and right after they pass Rite Aid, people wind it up. And by the time they hit Hula's, they're going 55. I actually saw a Corvette pulled over. It was wonderful to see, because he really wound it up. He was getting it on the outside. And there just happened to be one of the cruisers sitting there behind the food truck. Went and got him. But it occurs to me that if we could get people to slow down, it might be more likely that they might stop. We've got 4.5 restaurants in that one little shopping center, not counting Orlando's on the other side. Nobody knows it because there's no sign out front saying, hey, 4 places to eat here and a bakery. But if we could find ways to, I use the phrase curate our attractions. If we could find a way to tell people what we've got, I mean, the Bonnie's Pizza, I think, is wonderful. Hula's makes one of the best hamburgers in this region. And the bakery, I've been going in there way too much. So if we could tell people, and if they were slowed down already, which they should be, although the speed limit's 45, then maybe we could take advantage. I know it's never going to replace a car dealership, absolutely not. But it's going to do something until we get somebody who maybe wants to open a car dealership here.
Let me interject. In addition to city entities, the Chamber of Commerce would be helpful in something like that. They've had a focus on the 209 for the last several years about drawing business or vehicles off of 120 and into the communities in the 209.
Yeah, that's a regional focus,
So
I
they
believe.
could promote the businesses that we have as well as the other communities. But yeah, have the chamber be included in what we plan.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's a great idea.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but
No,
I didn't want to lose that thought.
yeah, well, if you interrupt, I lose mine. Because mine come in and out, you know, there's not much permanence
Yours are
there.
written down. You go
Yeah,
ahead.
that's why. But that was my point about economic development. I mean, I was interested, you used the phrase in your memo, the economic development roadmap, which sounds wonderful. What's on the roadmap? I mean, what kind of map is it?
Yeah. So what I wanted to do with the roadmap is kind of put initial thoughts together and kind of lay out, you know, what the next couple of years looks like in terms of, you know, kind of the foundational pieces that we will lay. And then if everything goes according to plan, I think after this roadmap, which kind of, it sort of grounds us a little bit and tells the council, the community, you know, whoever, city manager's office, right, what we plan to do. Now that, you know, we're kind of focusing on economic development in a little bit different fashion because of the economy, because of Tom Hillier Ford, because of all of that, what do we plan to do? So that's kind of the roadmap, a look ahead, where we're going, and then once we get past that, once we start implementing that, then we will do things like, you know, sort of a formal economic development strategic plan. I do believe that the council will take on a strategic planning effort. You know, they may or they may not. We've already talked about a number of things have come and gone, and it's, you know, no one's fault or anything, but I think they'll take on a strategic planning effort. And so what I want to do is sort of dovetail their strategic planning effort with economic development. Because I'd hate to get too far ahead on economic development, kind of be heading down one way, and, you know, what's important to the community and to the council at a strategic planning level is different than, you know, what we had thought in the economic development realm. So biding time just a little bit to dovetail those two efforts. Now, if something happens and the strategic plan gets pushed off a year, or, you know, we end up not doing it, then we'll move forward with an economic development plan, certainly. Just, you know, I don't know what that looks like right now. So did that answer your question?
It does. I was thinking you might have something more specific because you called it a roadmap. And generally, when I look at a map, there are little lines going
Yeah.
somewhere.
I mean, I'll start to tell you some of the thoughts that I'm thinking. Of course, it would be awesome to just, plug and play another car dealership and, we don't miss a beat. I don't know if that's realistic or not. So we will try things like tractor sales and other things, right? And so we've already started to talk to some of the businesses, and one of the conversations I had very early on was with David Hillier, and just having a conversation. What do you plan to do with your property? What's your timeline? What do you see in this region? And so from that conversation, I've had other conversations with businesses, because, we'd hate to lose another, big business if there's something that we're not seeing. So first part of the roadmap, let's just go talk to businesses.
Mhm.
What do they like? What do they dislike about being in Escalon? What do they see? What's on the horizon? So we're going to have conversations with, the bigger businesses and all the businesses really about, again, what they see. I'd hate to be caught off guard again, especially if there was something we're missing. I don't think there's something that we necessarily miss with David Hillier and Tom Hillier Ford. I think it was just, several things kind of converging at once that led to that decision. So that's number one. Just go talk to the businesses. More interactive with the chamber. Another part of the roadmap will be creating an entrepreneurial spirit. Again, I say this a lot. Your biggest strength is your biggest weakness at times. And part of the reason that people love Escalon is part of the reason that, we'll never be an economic powerhouse. It's small, it's quaint, your neighbors, your kids can walk to, middle school, right? You're not going to be an economic engine because of some of those things. So your greatest strength is your greatest weakness at times. So if we can create more of an entrepreneurial spirit within our community, because we're not going to attract probably, the large businesses. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to give up on that and we're not going to try, because another thing we're going to look at is so the third thing is how to utilize our existing assets. McHenry, to a certain extent, 120 is certainly an asset that needs to be better utilized. And the thing you don't want to see is just onesie twosie, dinky dunky type, developments along McHenry and 120. You want to really maximize those assets. So let's pause on number 3 and talk about number 2 for just a little bit longer. So if we can create an entrepreneurial spirit, and I don't know exactly how to do that, right? We don't have some magic formula that's going to turn it around in a week, but that's where we're going to get, I think, a lot of business growth. We have a lot of talented people, who are already doing things. How do we get them from, in their house to brick and mortar? How do we get them from small brick and mortar to, scaling, where they're, a bigger business generating more revenue? So it's a term called economic gardening. It's not, economic fishing. We're not going to be out there, reeling in big fish. By and large, doesn't mean we don't try, but by and large, we're not. So how do we garden? How do we, grow people, grow businesses? Too much.
Every time I drive by Starbucks,
Yep.
the drive-through line winds around the building.
Yep.
Every time I see a Dutch Brothers, any of the, okay, McDonald's has got Cosmics.
Mm-hmm.
Their answer to Starbucks.
Yeah.
A place where you can get the beverages, the frappes, whatever. So entrepreneurial spirit, let's approach the woman who put in the McDonald's, see if she wants to put a Cosmics here in Escalon, and we could be the first one in the county, in the region, and we could show how entrepreneurially friendly we are, and I don't know where it would be, but, I mean, we've got,
Figure that out later.
if Starbucks has got a crowd all the time, we could afford to have another one. Okay, go ahead.
I want to make a comment. Years ago, I used to drive through town, and we would come from Santa Clara to go up to Pinecrest, and we would swing by the bakery. in town. It's now an insurance. They had excellent stuff, bakeries. When I moved into town in '74, people would tell me, oh, my wife used to go shop at Helen Ann's, which was a high-end clothing store in Paddocks Village. And they were coming from San Francisco to go here to buy. So, I mean, it's possible. I mean, this is when the town was, what, 1,700 people? 120 was still there, you know? There's, and we're seeing synergy going on. I mean, we got Orlando's up, we got, you know, now McDonald's up. You know, there's, what's being built right to the south of McDonald's? Looks like they're doing a bunch of site work there.
I think that's just them finishing up, yeah, the
Okay.
construction. But, you know, I think a modern day example to the example you gave is, and I'm gonna forget the name. Butler's
Butler's
Pantry.
Pantry,
Butler's
yes.
Pantry.
Oh, they come from all over
And
for that.
Relish. Yeah,
Relish.
they
Yeah.
come, Butler's Pantry in particular, they really come, you know, from all over to Escalon to shop at that store. So, you know, that's another existing asset. Businesses like that, not singling that one out, but businesses like that where, you know, we can kind of capitalize on that. And certainly the downtown is an opportunity, you know, Main Street is an opportunity site. It's a really
It's
nice.
looking better.
asset.
Downtown's looking better. It's looking a lot better.
Be going.
And if you can, it's probably no more than 600 steps, not even that many, to get from Butler's Pantry around the corner to the winery, the wine shop.
You keep
So
bringing
good
that
taste.
up.
I do. You know, I've never been in there. I've never been here, but, I mean, I think that's the kind of thing where both my kids have been in there. I think they know the people who run it. But they've still been in there and tasted. And I think that's the kind of thing that draws people off of 120.
And speaking of that, Larry Grassi, I think he should be approached about doing something. He's done such a wonderful job on the lumberyard and I don't know what else he's done, but you know, about, speaking of approaching entrepreneurs, you know, see what he could do for us, would do for us. And then like Butler, I mean, the Butlers have the Relish restaurant. Maybe they've got something else that they'd like to, you know, let germinate, you know, get started.
I'd love to see kind of along the lines of Relish, I mean, see them open more hours, you know, as business. That's a good entrepreneurial opportunity. But also something like that that's healthy along the 120 corridor. Because, I mean, most people, I would say 90% of the people going along 120 have, more than that even know that exists.
Yeah,
You know, and
signage.
yeah, and I think there's businesses out there that, you know, are good food fast, is healthy food fast.
What kind of incentives can we offer? I mean, people don't do things out of the goodness of their heart. They need an incentive.
Yeah, you know, age-old question. I struggle with that one a little bit in that, you know, one, I don't know what we have, and, you know, but I know that the economy, the market, it doesn't always work on incentives. I mean, you know, people want to be where people want to be, right? And so people want to be in fun places, in healthy places, and walkable places, you know, I think by and large, and attractive places. And so those aren't always the cheapest places or providing the most incentives. They are where people want to be. And so, you know, part of the roadmap a little bit too is putting these foundational pieces. We, in my opinion, have to play to our strengths. You know, we can't go chasing Ripon or Riverbank or whoever else that's doing something different, you know, than us. We have to play to our strengths. You know, I'm getting my hands around what our strengths are, but I like these conversations because I want to see it through your eyes and the council's eyes and the community's eyes. But we have to play to our strengths, and we have to build on that. We have to create foundational pieces and build and keep moving in the right direction. I don't, I'll just touch on that question. I don't know. I mean, certainly in an economic development strategic plan, I think there will be some element of, incentives. I don't know what that looks like. But it can't, and I don't think you're saying this, it can't be our only option, our only solution.
So I am a business that started in my home and moved to brick and mortar in the last 2 years.
I had you in mind.
And I'm Larry's tenant. So I know, but I also work in construction. I know permitting processes. I knew to go look for an application for a working out of my home permit. That information is not available to the common person who doesn't know that that's possible, who doesn't know that they even need to have a permit to work out of to do business out of their home. The benefit, and this is why I keep bringing up communication and having that communication out, is that we have a lot of especially women in our community that do a lot of stuff from their homes, that don't know that they could get this permit and make themselves more public and make it more, build their clientele that way. They don't understand the value of the marketing, getting their names out there. Not that they wouldn't understand it, but when you don't have an experience with it, you just don't know what you don't know. And I think that building something to touch on those, because a lot of these are long-standing businesses started small, and they grow. I mean, and they take on the almost entire downtown, with all the different capabilities that they find for themselves. I think if we were to put something out saying, hey, if you have something and you need help to get into brick and mortar, we want to help you. We have to have the resources to do that. Sometimes it's hard to get a phone call or a clarification, or like I've had my struggles, but I'm used to these kind of bureaucratic processes where other people aren't. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't speak to either side necessarily in a negative light. It just means that we need to, if we are looking for them, to get them in and a part of our community and understanding how to do all of that the right way, but also the way that's going to benefit their business. Because I can tell you right now, going from my home to brick and mortar put a fire under me that changed the game for my business. And I'm almost outgrowing where I'm at right now in the quantity of people that I have to hire and the work that I have to do, because I followed that path. So I think that those stories, not my story, but those stories that are in our community, that Debbie's, they're successful, they're doing well, they could be better with signage and stuff like that. I think our community could help in that. A more, as you're driving in, something nice that says, hey, don't forget to stop by downtown, stuff like that, that's going to draw attention to it in a positive light. I think that's where we need to drive, but it's the communication out. But we also have to have that supportive structure on the other side. Say, we can help you, and then the follow through.
I want to piggyback on that. I know 2 women who are balking at getting business licenses, and I don't know why. Is it a hard process? Is it an expensive process?
The paperwork is a little intimidating when you're unsure.
But once you achieve it.
Yeah. But I had my own hurdles to jump as far as I think I got my work from out of my home permit in November, only to find out that in December I had to renew it.
Oh.
So it's those kind of things where it's not a yearly, it's a yearly, but it's a yearly in December situation. After you get through the first year, you're usually pretty good.
Is it expensive? I mean, is there a cost factor that's deterrent to people?
I think it was like 80.
Yeah.
$80?
So as far as incentivizing somebody to start a business, can we offer a free license, a half-price license, get information out there about how to get your license?
Barbara will subsidize them.
Yeah.
So I sometimes do not like direct responses to an issue, saying what we're doing, but we have tried to look at the business license and home occupation permit process. We have streamlined the application. I'm not saying we're 100% there yet, but we've streamlined the application, the review process, and then we've also reduced pretty significantly the home occupation permit fee. So we are trying to react, and that's part of our entrepreneurial spirit. This is completely cliche, but Microsoft, Apple, Google, right, they all started out of a garage. That's not our goal here, but our goal is, to your point, and it's a point I take, very deeply and seriously, is, we want to be welcoming, because how many people out there have had a really great idea, could have been very successful, but get frustrated, in the, first steps, right? And just, it never quite materializes. And I'm not saying that's happening here, I'm just globally, right? And so we do, to the greatest extent possible. Now, that doesn't mean we can be everyone's everything, but we do, to the greatest extent possible, want to make it an understandable process for people. And I think that's the most we can offer. I often describe government as a black box. You don't want someone looking on the outside like, I don't know I don't understand it. And if people don't understand it, they don't feel like it's comfortable, they sometimes will walk away. And so we want to make it as comfortable as process, as easy as comfortable as possible, as easy as possible. And that's going to take some work, and we're going to have to iterate. So we've already taken one stab, we're going to send it out there, and, we're going to get beat up a little bit. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And, we'll take that input and we'll try to tweak it again. So, I'll look at you directly. If, any comments you have on the process, on the applications, that would be greatly appreciated.
And how are you letting people know that you're doing this? Communication, where is that?
Come on.
That one needs to
who
move
keeps
to the
saying-
top.
No, I had a thought. I don't ski, but if we're halfway between San Francisco and Yosemite, can we not have a place where, hey, stop here for your ski pass for the day, or stop here in Escalon for your, can we capitalize on something else that's not here in order to beef up people stopping here?
Dodge Ridge is actually a little closer.
Okay, get
Yeah.
your Dodge Ridge
And
pass.
Badger Pass is in
And Badger
proximity.
Pass,
Yeah, so those
yeah.
that would be a good idea.
Kirkwood?
What's that?
Kirkwood.
That's going the other direction though, I believe.
No, it's up the hill.
It's
up to
88 though, yeah. But I know if you're going to Dodge Ridge from the Bay Area, you're coming through Escalon. I mean, there's no question about it. Same thing with Badger Pass.
So is there something you could stop here and get?
Well, you'd have to talk to them. I mean,
Yeah.
Badger Pass is a national park. It's a vendor in a national park, but Dodge Ridge, they're always looking for opportunities. That's a family, or was a family-run business. I think it still is. So that could be something. But getting back to the concept of communication, and this is something I believe you brought up the last time. Someone brought it up. And that is going out and asking people what they want, like better business permitting, or letting, having something where we actually go out and talk to people. I wouldn't mind spending a Saturday afternoon walking and talking and saying, what do you need? What do we need in our community? But, how can you help us? I think we would need to have all the same questions we have to be asking so we could create data sets from it. But it just seems that if we all like the city pretty well. I don't know, love may be too strong a term, but we all seem to like living here. I mean, I've lived here 23 years. We know what we like about it, and I think most people do. So I think they're willing to talk to us about it. And if we could quantify those responses, we could get a really good idea of what people want to see, even if it's just pipe dreams. It might provide a direction. And I think if we did it, and the Recreation Committee did it, and maybe even the city council, if we all got together and said, okay, we're gonna try this, we're gonna advertise it, you can come talk to us at the library, or we'll come by your house, you know, we'll do neighborhoods. I think that might be one way to do it. You know, it's just, I mean, one of the things that got me in a recent meeting was the resident who moved to Escalon because he wanted to park his RV on his residential lot, and he thought Escalon would be more open to that than another community. I think he was from Oakdale, if I
I
remember.
don't remember.
And so I think we need to let people know that, hey, we do have rules. You know, it's not an anything goes community, but we also have dreams. So that's my point on the communication.
I have just a thought. I heard Ronnie say that she pulled a permit in November and then had to do it again. So did the website, was there any information?
I probably missed something. I mean, I don't know how, if this is, you know, almost 2 years ago now, when I did this process.
Here's a thought, is, I don't know, you put it on your website or Facebook, but you announce to the community, you know, if you were looking to open up a business and you want to do a business permit, we're going to have
Get it
a
in town.
workshop at the library on these days to walk you through on how to do it.
And do it in January, so they've got a calendar
Yeah.
year before they.
Yeah.
And
Need
tell them,
another.
if that's the way our permit, I mean, I'm thinking you're due a refund, to be honest. I mean, I'm being
Oh, I
flip
did
here.
too at the time.
I would
was like,
absolutely
gosh,
think
it
that.
got me.
Because it should have been clear. Because if somebody told me you can spend $80 now and $80 in 6 weeks, or you can wait 6 weeks to spend
Yeah.
$80 once,
And just be illegal for a little period of time.
I'm gonna wait.
Yeah.
A prorated amount.
So,
You know, in Marshall, Michigan, it's a town the same size as Escalon, they've got a Denny's diner. So instead of a big Denny's restaurant, they've got a downscaled little diner. So why couldn't we have an Applebee's diner or an Olive Garden diner? Talk to some of these business owners about getting a smaller version. They may not make millions like they do at the bigger ones, but, you know, getting still having a presence, you know, but a smaller presence.
I wonder, like, when you talk with the businesses, if it would be helpful if they've got like data, you know, when they run credit cards, just based on zip code or something, they capture that data to understand, you know, are these people coming, are they locals? You know, I think of Hula's, you know, I assume they get a lot of people going by, but I also know a lot of people that go there.
oh, they have a big local clientele.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I'm
but
wondering.
we've talked to people from Italy and Germany and, yeah.
And I'm just wondering, you know, if that data shows, wow, it's a lot of, it's 80% local, okay, then what can we do to capture that 120 traffic? Or are they just buying everything in Manteca and heading to Yosemite?
Antica's got a bypass.
Well, how many of us have been somewhere that you get on a tour bus to go somewhere and there's a designated stop
Yeah.
that they stop and they unload the 80 people off? You know, if we had something like that, I don't know who could handle 80 people at a time.
I love the idea of those diners. I mean, that keeps it small
Well,
and quaint.
if you stop in Manteca, it's because you see something you know. You see an Applebee's, you see a Panera, you see a, you know, but we'd have something that people know the name of, but it'd be a smaller scale because that's all we could afford. I mean,
Well, the problem is that McDonald's mentioned it, that they wanted 120, but there was nothing available.
yeah.
You know, that's why I think the key is that Liberty Park area, that whole stretch, you know, either that or you go past the Pottery Place to the east.
as far as things in the future, you talked about the roadmap, spring 2024, next couple of years. I'm very much not in the know about AI, but can AI help us at all? In any way? I don't know what it's good for, what it can do.
What about putting charging stations on 120? Advertise it. Next to a place where people would stop and eat.
The infrastructure that those charging stations require, if you were to do a lot of them, is sizable.
Yeah.
It's sizable. Having
Well,
installed
no, there's
multiple.
two downtown and Main Street Park.
You know,
Those are used. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I see them, more recently, I've seen them used. For a long time, I just saw people parking there.
it seems like Tammy once said that it was considered putting them in the parking lot behind Bank of the West or BMO, but it couldn't be supported.
Anecdotally, talking to one of the businesses, they mentioned, hey, you can't find those two charging stations online. And so we said, that's weird, I wonder why. And so, we called someone, I don't know who, and they're like, oh yeah, all we have to do is toggle on a switch. And so they toggle on a switch, and now people can find the two Escalon charging stations online. That's kind of a good, I think, but small example of, just communication can, help solve problems. So when we're out there talking to, businesses and residents and others, we can fix little issues like that. And so this business who mentioned it to us, we want to have it visible, so when people are traveling and they see, a charging station in the area, they'll know they can come here, and hopefully if they're charging, they can, stop at one of the restaurants or.
Do you own those stations? You get revenue from them?
I don't think they charge for them, do they?
Yeah.
I think they're free.
Yeah.
For free. Don't advertise that.
And I'm not, Dan is probably right, I'm not 100% sure on that, but yeah, if we charged, which I don't think we do, right? It's very small revenue.
I guess I'll just bring my electric car over and plug it in there instead of my house. Costs $10 to charge up a car on your PG&E bill. I've done the math. $10 to $12, depending on how much of a charge you need. If we're not charging, we should be.
They certainly started out at no cost, I think, just to see, or maybe to get people to know they were there and get people to use them. I think the thought was, as time went on, we would start charging, but I don't know if that had happened in the meantime.
It's another switch we have to toggle on.
Yeah.
Well, and so, I'm a dinosaur, I don't have a smartphone, but, so chances are if you've got something that needs to be charged, you've got a smartphone. And so I'm thinking about signage being a good thing. You don't need signage if you've got it on your phone.
It's right on your car.
Yeah, so,
Well, and
yeah.
to bring that around to planning, other jurisdictions require either the install of charging stations with new construction or the infrastructure to support it. We would have had that opportunity on like McDonald's, but we didn't have that in place. And it's a revenue base for the business, but it's also that encouragement throughout, like, Orlando's could have had a spot. I don't believe they do currently, but that might be something we want to look into for future. We have lots of possible development projects where we could probably see if we can assist in fee reduction or something
Yeah.
to compensate for additional, but I mean, going towards that green building, and the fact that there are a lot of Teslas here in town, and a lot of Teslas that like to travel, so it would be a good stopping point. I think that's why there's a lot of them in the Bass Pro parking lot.
Even multifamily.
Get a charge out of Escalon on your way to Yosemite.
I love it. That's good. Very good.
Yeah, charge your car and fill up your stomach.
We could put some downtown by the park.
I think we ought to be looking at stuff too. I mean, when we think about planning, I mean, if we just build parking lots next to the road, nobody pulls over for that. We need to make it attractive. And it needs to be something where people want to go in and, you know, put the parking lot in the back, put the storefront on the road, so they can smell that bakery when we post the speed limit at 15 miles an hour.
I didn't come to that open house on the housing. Was it well attended or?
So,
Close for Christmas for me to lie.
Yeah.
does the city of Escalon control the speed limit through town on 120?
No, that is
No,
Caltrans.
Caltrans.
But I thought it was 30 miles an hour through the bulk of the city. And then as you get past the Pottery Place, then it picks up. But I think,
I think it's 45 before you get to the pottery.
Well, it might be 40.
Could
And
be.
I think it's a different, if you're coming from Oakdale into town, I think it's the
Right.
35. I think if you're headed out of town, it's 40 or 45.
Yeah.
okay. So is the 45 mile an hour sign like on the outskirts heading that way? Or is it in town, like Debbie's Rite Aid?
I don't
No,
think,
it's much
not,
lower
not,
there.
much farther out.
The,
Yeah, closer as you head out of town, like Paddock area, I think.
I came out of Orlando's and some guy passed me in the median because he must have been going 60.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I see that kind of thing all the time.
Do that on McHenry too.
Henry's worse, I think.
yeah.
Because it looks more open.
I'm thinking, here's a police station right here, why isn't there a cop? I said, it would make a lot of revenue on, I'm doing 40 to make a left turn on Ullery, heading north, and everybody gets in the slow lane and zips past me,
So this is a topic dear to my heart, but think about how people use 120 in McHenry. So if you're in town, you're using, if you're just local, you use those roads completely differently than someone traveling from, the Bay Area to Yosemite or from Modesto to wherever else. And so you will see these difference in speeds and, difference in aggressive driving. I don't know how to fix that yet, but it feels like an issue that requires or necessitates some thought.
Well, there's a town north of Stockton called Lodi. That anybody that lives in Lodi or knows friends in Lodi knows that Lodi speed limit is the speed limit you go, and if you don't, you will probably get ticketed. They're pretty strict there.
They have that reputation.
They do. They have the reputation that don't speed in Lodi because you'll get a ticket.
Yeah, so is Ripon. Rippon's the same way.
Yeah. My
But-
kid's friends is a cop there and he loves writing tickets.
Yeah. But I have seen, gosh, over the last 2 weeks, because when I drive home, I've seen people pulled over on McHenry multiple
It
times
seems like one or
over
two
the
a
last
day,
couple
I
of
see.
weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is, it's like, oh, finally. Because sometimes it's a little sketchy to,
Well, when you've only got one officer on duty, he's got to be
yeah,
somewhere.
I spend a lot of my time on that stretch from First Street to Ace Hardware. That's my loop. So, I know that after a certain time of day, I have to hit the light to come across or I'll never make it. And then, when I pull out, I've got to wait until the last car, because no matter how fast they look like they're going, they'll pick it up once they hit that lane split coming into town on McHenry.
Yeah.
So I'm pulling out of the neighborhood right there, and I just gotta wait, because it's risky.
Seems like with all the, like with the ACE and with the PNC Bank and just all the construction, we've looked at the speed limit on McHenry a lot lately, or in the last couple of years. So I'm not sure that the speed limit needs attention, but that would be, you know, I mean.
Well, no, they don't go
something-
40.
Yeah.
They don't do 40. unless
Nobody
they're
goes
making a
40
left
on
turn
McHenry.
Or a right turn on one of the side streets.
But when you started to say that local people, I avoid. I mean, when we were talking about McDonald's and that guy on Swanson or Country, whatever, he said, talk about people taking, yeah, that was me. I go through Countrywood and, you know, over to St. John. And so I don't use McHenry and 120 as much as I could have. I third, fourth, you know, snaking around.
We used to have medians out there with trees out there on McHenry, but I was behind a guy who ran into that once. He was driving a van. He damaged his car pretty good hitting that curb, and it was shortly after that we decided to take him out. I'm not sure if that had anything to do with it. But I liked it better with the median and the trees.
It slowed down at least one driver.
One guy in particular.
Good ones today.
Yeah, car stayed slow. So how do we proceed from here? That'd be my question, because it's getting close to 7:30, which I'm sure everyone wants to get home.
Is that the witching hour? So, okay, we've talked about, you know, kind of what we heard, and I think, you know, very consistent with last month is what we've talked about this month, minus a couple things. We've more focused in on economic development, I think, specifically 120 Main Street. Down at the bottom of the email are some potential kind of ideas. Again, part of this exercise is staff has some discretionary time. You know, 70, 80% is taken with, you know, just our day-to-day stuff. You know, we're gonna have to devote some percentage to recreation and the other things that we do, but there's some discretionary time, and, you know, I like to use that time as effectively as possible. And, you know, if we were all sort of aligned, of course, waiting to dovetail this with what the council and their strategic plan comes up with, but, you know, where do we spend our discretionary time? 120 corridor plan, which I think weaves a lot of this conversation in together, maximizing use, either slowing traffic or making it more accessible, more visible, more communicative in that manner. One of the things that we talked about last time, not as much this time, is just the general aesthetics on 120. And if people are passing through, is the aesthetics that we currently have, is that an inviting atmosphere or not? And, you know, how do we address that? And so, you know, all of those topics can be kind of folded into this SR 120 corridor plan, in my mind. Number 2, active transportation plan. We talked about improving walkability in the community. I think that is positive. You know, businesses come where people want to be, and, you know, we don't have a ton of housing, but, you know, if you make a more walkable community, you could attract business, but you just make your quality of life better in the community. So, you know, those are things that we can spend our time on: code updates and review, communications plan, the development review, processing improvements. You know, these are just options that we have kind of cherry-picked from the discussion at the last commission meeting. So, you know, I don't think you should like motion and vote on this, but, you know, just kind of general thoughts on, you know, if we, right, were to assign staff, you know, 10% of their time, we would focus it on this type of thing.
And but this is just a question that, do we have a possibility for internships for, public relations, marketing?
You know, I would answer that question always with, there's possibility out there. You know, college, high school even, you know, there's always students looking for some experience. You know, we just have to tap into the right network, into the right program, into the right something, right? And then we have to, you know, be able to take it on and make it effective and productive for them. But yeah, I would say it's possible.
We do have some social media posts and stuff like that, so I was just thinking that whoever's manning that could use an assist from that level of personnel, like a college student looking to get hours, that's being trained
Yeah.
on communication and other things like that.
So is your issue a quality or a quantity issue?
So my issue is that we,
Like what would the intern help with?
the quality of the information, the timing of the information, and just keep making the city's outreach be more, to be better than the Facebook pages that we have in town. I would like the information coming from the city first. And we have a lot of information that comes out, or conversations that are stirred up that are hearsay. And that makes the groups or those members more seem, or, you know, and you know, it's kind of, it gives them the upper hand with the information, or the control of the narrative. And I think the city should take back that control. And the only way to do that is to get that communication out quicker. And that's kind of what I'm looking for, is, you know, if we're able to get that stuff out, in not necessarily always in advance, but at least start something that's reoccurring. We have the newsletter that comes out in the bill that we've got to pay. A lot of people set that on the counter until the month it's due. I being one of them, just because I don't have time to read it. And everybody's trapped on their devices most of the time anyways. So to get that stuff going out, I think we collect emails to send the bills. We could email out the newsletter. Stuff like that, like just small tweaks, and making, when we're talking about developing businesses here, maybe mentorship or something like that, where we have existing businesses on like a how did you do it kind of a thing, or, you know, getting people to agree to like mentor a business that wants to come in. That's at least trying to do it the right way, or help to encourage it, because I think we're a community, and bringing everybody together is in that light to grow. It would be really a good, not necessarily a good look, but it's true to the core of what the community is. And I think we need to present that outwardly. I think we might start to see more participation.
The city does a good job sending out weather alerts. You know, it's going to freeze tonight. Most of us already know that, but I mean, it's still nice to get a little note from the city. It's going to be hot today. The city could send out, like Ronnie is talking about, the city could send out stuff, any number of things. You know, there's a city council meeting tonight, 3 things on the agenda, even something that simple, and a link could help spark interest. Or you could go a little deeper, say, here are 3 things, these 3 things. Planning Commission meeting tonight.
Come on, come on.
Come on, come on, yeah. And so, I mean, I think those kind of announcements are going to be helpful to the residents, and it'll be not only informative, but it might spark some interest. And tell them that we need their help. If we're gonna get people to stop, we need a lot of ideas to get people to stop spending their money.
one point, I was thinking we needed to prioritize, and like you talked, maybe economic development having more priority, but then again, the walkability, the communication, I don't think we can focus on one to the end of leaving out the others, you know? So you're saying 10% of your time, it might have to be 5 and 5 and 2 or something like that. I mean, there are several topics here we
I
haven't.
was thinking that too.
What was
She just
that?
added to your day.
I mean, the
That's
first.
12, just gave you
All right.
12%.
I did, okay.
All right, Barbara, for you.
5 is, I don't know math. But some of these topics we haven't even touched upon tonight, so I would say they don't have a high priority, so, well, but they can rank lower on the list.
But some of them we can do cheap. We don't have to spend a lot of money on some of them.
Agree.
Good.
Okay.
You have any other thoughts? Feel free to call, email, stop in, talk with us.
All right, thank you for that discussion. I guess we'll move on to matters presented from the audience. Nobody here, anybody online, just ask?
No.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to staff communications.
I don't know if you guys have heard, but McDonald's is open.
Yeah, I saw a line.
Yeah. So McDonald's is open. That's exciting. We do plan to bring a traffic calming plan program before you in January. If you do have any comments on the version that was sent out, please let us know. But I think it has come to a head in certain conversations at the city council level, and so we will be bringing that forward. It's really, it's not going to pinpoint what we're doing on every intersection. It is a plan that provides residents a process to submit projects or potential traffic concerns. It lays out the process by which staff reviews it. It outlines various elements, various traffic calming measures that the city would consider. And Barbara, you submitted a comment. I'll just touch that one. Speed bumps, as we all know them, are less in vogue now for public safety, just for general annoyance of the public. There are different options now, speed humps. Speed humps are basically a speed bump but with cutouts for fire trucks and other safety vehicles and transit buses to be able to move through without, sort of hindering their response time. So we do have an alternative to that in the plan, but it basically lays out the traffic calming measures that we would explore. And then it lays out a potential funding source using a portion of the Measure K funds we get each year to dedicate to some of the projects that we receive potentially. So that is the idea of the traffic calming program. Again, there's a lot of conversation at the city council level about, traffic and speeding and, too much activity around a certain neighborhood or around a certain stop. And so we want to have this process so that others can submit concerns and we can look at it in sort of a more formal, not a one-off or ad hoc method. So that's the idea. So that'll come before you in January. We will have an action item at that commission meeting, and that will be the one.
I think that's a great idea. Standards and a process. When that speed bump came up on Deborah Circle, and that's where I'm on, but around the corner, and when a couple council members, were agreeing that maybe that's a good idea, what a slippery slope that would have opened up, because then I could have just said, and I was against it, but I could have said, okay, put one in front of my house. you know, it's the same street. And they would have had to have been everywhere. They couldn't have said no. So I'm glad that's going forward.
Third item here is, we did have the bid opening today for the Main Street Park improvements, the pedestrian trail and some of the other recreational amenities that we'll be having in the park. So bid opening today. We think, well, we have a low bid. We think it's a responsible bid, but we'll verify that. And then we'll go out to construction probably February. Maybe there's a chance we can speed that up a little bit, but you know, probably February timeframe as the weather gets better, although the weather's pretty much held out so far.
Ask a question
Of course.
on the improvement. Is there gonna be sidewalks on the south side of Main Street along the park?
All the way to St. John.
Because with the tree lighting they had a couple of weeks ago, you're walking down that street, either life in your own hands.
Yeah. Yes. As you all know, the public review draft of the housing element is out. The 30-day public review period closes Thursday, in 2 days. We are required to wait 10 days, and we will wait 10 days, but we're going to reply, or how do I say it? We will accommodate, that's not still the right word. Incorporate.
Yes.
That's totally what I meant. Incorporate all the comments that we receive into the draft that then goes to HCD. So the goal is to submit the draft to HCD for their review. They expect to take 90 days, and then we hope it's only one review cycle. If it's more, then you know, it'll be past the April deadline, most likely. So that is the timing on that, and that is all the staff updates that we had. Although I will share with you, there are 2 future projects, so not submitted applications. Those are both residential projects. Somewhere in the, you know, single family to R2, just a little denser single family homes. We have 4 pending projects, so that means submitted applications into the city under review. We have the Brayton plan development that's been approved and awaiting building permit and construction, and then we have the McDonald's as the completed project. So still, you know, potentially 6 projects moving forward to get to the Planning Commission, you know, in the coming months. FYI.
One of them, the Brennan and 120.
Yes, it is.
Pressure on Caltrans to put a light at that intersection.
We are working with Caltrans. They're doing, and we haven't quite got the specific name of the thing that they're doing, but they're doing some intersection analysis to determine if basically to determine if a signal is warranted or some other traffic control device, and you know how much potential funding they would get from the state level. So we're going through that process. We haven't heard from them in a couple of months, and I ping them about once every other month, but they have kind of taken on that process.
We wanted to do the study until after this thing has been approved.
Whenever they're thinking about a roundabout, because there's one by the Chicken Ranch Casino going up to Sonora. And
That's enormous.
It's huge, but it's, I mean, it's on 108, you know, it's on a
Find them all over the
Caltrans road.
state now.
Yeah, Caltrans in recent years is becoming much more accustomed and willing to do roundabouts on state highways.
I just wonder when you begin to get industrial development over there on the north side of 120.
We already got one going.
Well, you got the Yates thing, but it's a steel fabrication place that they're talking about putting in. You and I spoke about that this afternoon. I know they say they're gonna bring the trucks in from a different direction, but I don't think that will always be the case. I They will frequently come down 120 because it's a better road.
Yeah.
And when you put a neighborhood on one side and you put a steel fabrication place on the other with 65 employees or 80 employees, however many employees they say they're going to have, so you got traffic going both sides, if they're doing a study now, it's not even going to be remotely accurate in 2 years, or however long it takes to complete those two projects. So that concerns me. But a roundabout would solve a lot of problems, especially if it was large enough to accommodate 18-wheel trucks.
At the railroad tracks, though. I think that's the concern.
You mean over there, yeah, on the south side of it?
You can't, it can't be as
Yeah.
wide as the one on 108. I mean, that thing
That's
works
huge.
out yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how well that works when you got all the gamblers leaving and the commuters coming home from working in the valley, you know.
I like the roundabout we had down here at River Road.
I did too.
I was commuting every day, twice, back, going down and coming back. And traffic moved better with that roundabout than it does even now, even though it's not, remarkably slow. But that roundabout was great.
Right, let's move on to Commissioner Communications.
I don't have anything.
Don't know anything?
I have one thing. I did go by the McDonald's, and we asked them to put in, and they agreed, they thought it was a good idea, they said, that kind of the speed bump in front of the restaurant. It's not much of a speed bump. When you get to the west side of it, the closest to McHenry, there's no bump there at all. I mean, it flattens out. It's the smallest speed bump I've ever seen. I know it's not supposed to be, it's
Is
got,
it supposed to be a raised walkway?
it's a raised, yeah, but on one end of it, there's no raise at all. So if
Is it
it's
at
there to
88?
protect, what's that?
Is it an ADA slope as to why they had to do it that way?
It could be. I hadn't thought of that.
It is their ADA path of travel
Yeah,
from the
so
sidewalk.
if it's
to the
ADA,
building.
they have 2% slope there within the landing.
So it has to come down to a certain
Yep.
level?
Yeah, that's probably why it's like that.
Okay. If that's the case, then
You withdraw your.
I withdraw I don't withdraw the observation. I was
It's a good
disappointed
question.
it wasn't
Yeah.
much of a bump.
Yeah.
Because if I'm coming out of there, and I won't be, but if I were coming out of there, I would just swing to the west and avoid any kind of bump at all, and not have to slow down.
I would just say I'm pleasantly surprised at the McDonald's. It really turned out nice. The other day, the line was out to McHenry. It's no car dealership, but that adds up. So good for them. I like the wall they put in to protect the two houses on Countrywood. I think kudos to them for really taking a lot of extra steps to make it what they call it, a neighborhood store. And congratulations, sort of congratulations to the football team, almost made it.
Oh,
Good season.
Good season.
Yeah, well, they've played some big boys.
Yeah. 3 AA.
Yeah.
The school was twice as big student population.
Yeah. Okay, we will adjourn at 7:50. Thank you, everyone.
And Merry Christmas to all.
Indeed.
Jay,
We won't see each other before then, I hope.
Okay, otherwise I
This
thought of giving
conference
it
is
to
no
Mike.
longer being recorded.
When he's done, then I'm gonna take a peek.
Oh,
You know what?